Right. Before we get started, I can see Mr. Michael Brown listening in, and I know the reason why he's listening in. And that,
He's
ladies and
just trying to catch up. That's
no,
all. He just
no,
wants to catch up
you
on
can be
what's going
quiet.
on.
You can be quiet. Right. Before we crack on, I better come to the admission and the reason why Angie's going to berate me for this, and this is why I want to get it out there quickly. Is Angie discovered this morning that I have a phobia of tomato ketchup, and we'll move on from there. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast. It is Wednesday, the 14th of May, all day. The wonderful Angie will be providing a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market movement news in agricultural markets, and probably having a bit of a dig at me at some point during the show. But before she
Never.
does, I'll get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed on this Spaces session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, the glamorous Angie Setzer, and we are definitely not sponsored by Heinz tomato ketchup.
No, because Heinz is terrible. We would
Yeah,
never do that. Never,
I'll
never.
take your word
That's
for it.
We're a red gold family over here. There, no,
Oh, okay.
that's what. But welcome to the Thunderdome. Happy Wednesday, Hump Day, for those of you who
Indeed,
celebrate.
yes.
Just actually got news. I was going to lead. The first thing I was going to lead with was 45Z updates. And now I have to go and scroll down because literally 2 minutes ago, it looks like they just, well, an hour ago, they posted on the Ways and Means Committee Twitter page, but they did say that they went ahead and passed the one big, beautiful bill delivering on President Trump's policies for tax relief, et cetera, et cetera. The one thing that's important about this one big, beautiful bill, other than the fact that it makes me feel like I'm reading a Berenstein Bears book again, I think you're, anyway, it is very helpful for renewable fuels. It contains the revisions to 45Z, and there's been some conversation about 45Z. What is it? What does it do? Why is it important? Yada, yada, yada. And really, 45Z, we had a blender's tax credit. And so I don't really want to have to go all the way back to 2006 and GW there, Mr. Bush, too, to talk about the RFS and all that jazz. But really, as we've moved forward here, ethanol has been able to kind of stand on its own. It's replaced the MTBE here in the US. It provides an oxygenate. It's got about a 10% baseline blend rate on the ethanol side. So I wanted to clarify that because a lot of people still think it's heavily subsidized or whatever before we lead into the 45Z conversation. And it's not. Basically, we've got ethanol, we've got a baseline of demand, and we've been exporting anything that's kind of over and above where our domestic demand has been here. This really focuses on biodiesel and renewable diesel. And so those are two different things. Biodiesel is something that you can kind of blend in. It tends to have a little bit of an issue, with some chemistry things, whatever. I'm not that smart about it, but renewable diesel can basically replace diesel one for one, and it is something that can be done or used. It can use used cooking oil. It can use beef tallow. Vegetable oils are kind of the preferred feedstock or whatever. And so you have had in the past what they've called the blender's tax credit to kind of get this renewable diesel, biodiesel market on its feet. Part of because of this has come from the Inflation Reduction Act. You saw major expansion in crush, right? In the soybean crush industry, several hundred million bushels worth. I think we're up like 400 million bushels from 2018 or something like that. I'd have to go back to look, but it's a pretty significant jump. And what that does is it helps take the weight off from our need for exports, first off.
Right.
And so, fast forward to the end of last year. So, for the blender's tax credit that had been put in place is a kind of bridge to get us to 45Z, expired, and the Biden administration just really kind of dropped the ball. There's like, we lost the election. Trump can figure it out, and I think it was partly kind of like, all right, well, screw you, farmers, like, we don't
Yeah,
need to do
right.
this. Like, you didn't help us. We're not going to help you. And, the Trump administration, many had thought would be negative to biofuels. He was in the past. He had Carl Icahn, or there is advisor. That word was easy for me to think of, but not say. And he was really against. You had the small refinery exemptions. You had all of these things, and so a lot of people had come into this second term really expecting it to be super bearish biofuels, and that goes
Right.
kind of against the Make America Great, the manufacturing, yada yada yada. So fast forward to this week, we haven't had a credit in place. You really have had a poor start to the year. Like, we're still crushing beans like hell won't have it, but we're exporting a lot of soybean oil because we don't have the domestic demand that we thought we would. And we've been pretty cheap. And so it's worked into the export market. But we're now seeing that the new round in the House is coming forward with a second bill, or kind of one that would provide clarity to 45Z. And it's got three important changes. And this passed the Ways and Means Committee. It's stuck in this bill that people are optimistic will get passed. First thing that's big is it would be an extension of the credit. So instead of expiring at the end of 27, it would go through 2031. This is huge because it provides people an ability to plan. Whoa, what's that with the, everything that we have here from the government? Plan. Businesses don't need to plan. We just like to ride by the seat of our pants. It would also provide a preference for domestic feedstocks. So this would limit the ability, like what we've seen in the past, kind of unintended consequence wise, is we're importing the hell out of used cooking oil from China and some of these other places, beef tallow from Brazil, and it's kind of displacing the fuel that we're making here in North America, so the feedstocks there. So you're going to see Mexico, Canada, the US, those will qualify. And then it's supposed to get easier. They're removing the indirect land use calculation. There's a few other things that are happening that will really help the American producer be able to kind of tap into this credit. And so
Right.
will be something that we want to watch. It's a very complicated. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it as quick and concise as possible, but it's
There's a lot of moving parts,
yeah,
right?
there's 77 layers to this. Like, you want to be able to provide context with but so it'll be something that we'll be watching. It's been part of the reason that you've seen soy oil take off. It's been another supportive factor to soybeans. So we not only had tighter carry out than expected on Monday with the twist of a positive China meeting over the weekend, we also have this, finally we're going to see some level of clarity return to the market. And honestly, this tax credit's $1 to $1.75. It's a lot of money. It goes to the producer of the fuel instead of the blender, but that should cut the cost of the fuel to the blender and really
Right.
kind of help incentivize the
I think
blending.
like this, when things like this happen, it's easy to say, okay, well, only the producer's benefiting, but cash is fungible, right? So if you're
Yes.
getting money back on that, then it becomes a better market going forward. So everyone does benefit eventually, even if like the one person gets the money in one point.
Rising tides, ships, the like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
all of
so,
that stuff.
yeah.
Insert cliche here.
I'm good at cliches, not so good at puns. I'm actually a little jealous while Michael's here. Not, don't tell him though.
Don't encourage him. Move
Right, don't
on.
tell him. And the next thing we're paying attention to, obviously, Russia and Ukraine. I feel like we're kind of pushing Putin at this point, or at least Zelensky is, where he's like, if you're not coming, you're not serious. Like, either Putin's serious or he's not. If he doesn't show up to
Yeah.
Turkey, he's not. What makes me laugh is like Russia's like, yeah, we'll send a delegation. And Lavrov, like, I say everything wrong. I pronounce it terribly. But like, he's like sending gasoline, like a fire truck filled with gasoline to a fire. Like, how is he going to calm the, you know what I mean? Like, let's send the most unhinged member of our administration to negotiate. That sounds like a great plan. I mean, he's threatened to blow him off the map, like 17 Ukraine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
his
But no, but he's the guy you want to be facing when you want to shake hands.
yeah. He's great for negotiations. That makes perfect sense. And so that's the thing that we'll see. We'll see who will show up tomorrow. Zelensky has basically said like he'll send his delegation if Putin's not going to be there, but Trump has said he will show up if Putin does. And so it'll be really interesting.
I kind of got like this picture of them both like hiding in little camper vans near the venue, waiting for the other one to leave their camper van first.
It reminds me of like anytime I want to go anywhere. Who all's there? Who's there?
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, I'll go if he goes.
I don't
Well,
know
he
if
said he's gonna go if
yeah.
you go.
How is the parking also? Because if I don't know where to park, I'm going home, just so you know.
Is
But
there a buffet?
right? So, I mean, we'll see. This could be a huge turning point. Like, obviously, if Putin shows up and we're able to negotiate,
Yeah.
an unconditional ceasefire for the next 30 days, it gives us time to negotiate peace. And we're able to kind of figure out what this looks like in a nice, calm manner. Yay. I'm not going to hold my breath that that's what happens, right? I don't know if Putin will show up, first of all, but really what it looks like is if this does not provide that unconditional ceasefire that everyone is hoping for, we will see the EU ramp up their sanctions. And also, Zelensky was saying this morning that the US has a huge sanctions package, which I think is just what Graham is pushing out. You've seen Lindsey Graham is pushing out, and so that could be interesting in and of itself if we were to kind of see, Russia refuse to participate or refuse to really. And that's the thing. Putin has said that in order for there to be a 30-day ceasefire, Ukraine can't receive any military supplies or weapons or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see. We did also kind of in relation to that see that NATO, it does look like they will agree to raise their defense spending. This has kind of been in the works for a while, obviously, bump it up to 5%. But we
Yeah.
have a G7 summit next week, I believe. And then, like, so you'll have some of the same folks kind of interacting and rubbing elbows. And then NATO will gather in June. And that's important just simply because you've had some EU leaders say that they don't want to do anything with trade until we get through the NATO summit and
Yes.
guarantee security. So, like, all of these things work together. Speaking of trade and Ukraine and the EU, though, we did hear, or the Financial Times is reporting this morning, that the European Union is not going to continue that loophole or the tax free imports of Ukrainian grains that they've been doing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
shortly after the war, they opened up the door. They got a phone call. They removed the import tax. I'm back. They removed the import tax and made it to where it was free. Folks could come in, or they would take in, a lot of grain. Poland was the big recipient, like, and you had a lot of Polish farmers get very, very angry, about this because it obviously bastardized their market.
Yeah.
You're bringing in much, much cheaper. I mean, there was a point in time shortly after the invasion where Ukraine's corn prices had dipped below, I think, $2 a bushel. And so obviously that hurts the surrounding countries.
Yeah.
And Poland has been very aggressively pushing back on this. So the EU was like, okay, we're going to listen to Poland. We're not going to do that. Otherwise, there's been a couple articles coming out. There was one in particular today. I'm going to try to be as nice as possible that talked about U.S. soybean export demand dropping
You know
20%.
what? Can I just say, so obviously, because we have PIQ has the distribution license with Reuters, so obviously we publish all their information, all their
Yeah.
news. When I saw, because obviously it's not me that does it, is we've got a team of people that do all that for us. When I saw that PIQ's Twitter account published that, I almost WhatsApped you straight away and go, it wasn't me, it wasn't me.
I mean, and everyone has their own opinion, and if it's an educated one, that is fine. I feel like in this one, like there was a quote in it that I take particular issue with.
Oh God.
And I'm not, this is pure respect. This would be something I would say face to face if anyone was ever, like willing to debate about it. The idea that there was a line in there that Brazil has 20 million metric ton more soybeans to ship on September 1st. Like, that is not necessarily a fair statement. And it really doesn't take into consideration grain flow, values, things of that nature. Like, will Brazil have more beans on hand as of the 1st of September when we start our export season? Yes. Does that mean that they're all exportable and going to be shipped on the 1st of September? Absolutely not. Like, that is anyway. So I just think we have to take everything with a grain of salt. The folks in Brazil that I trust to kind of talk more on grain flow and all of that jazz, like, you have to recognize they only have so much export capacity
Yeah.
each month, and they're going to have two books. There will be some issues with space. You're going to have a second corn crop coming off that is very large. You're going to see some cheaper flows of grain, whether that's soybeans or not. Soybeans right now provide the better margin for exporters, but we really have to be careful making assumptions based on these spreadsheets that the USDA and others put out. Also,
Yeah.
we have to be careful making assumptions or making, oh, well, production is here. This is what we're looking at for ending stocks. Like, we have to take into consideration, there are so many moving pieces in grain supply and demand outlooks. Like, to just basically take one piece out of context and plug it into another piece and make an assessment accordingly,
Right.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying kind of take it with a grain of salt, do a little bit more in the way of research, learn a bit more about cash flows and things like that. I'm not saying that the person who said it doesn't know cash flows. Like, don't take that the wrong way. But, just there's a lot. AgriInvest puts out some great information. AIQ puts out some great information.
Indeed. Yeah.
There's some good stuff coming out of South America that provides you more in the way of accurate insight. Just be careful not to take something that's sensational and make it,
Yeah.
the
Well, I
fact.
tell
Like,
you, on that
yes.
note, obviously, come Sunday, he says, touching wood. Oh, careful. God. Oh
The show
God.
just took a turn.
Oh God. Oh, moving on. No, but seriously, back in the lane. Back in the lane. So our new mobile experience, our new mobile app launches hopefully Sunday or Monday. And we've got a dedicated, with the help of you and Nico, a dedicated agricultural kind of column feed on there with the likes of you, with the likes of Nico, and non-Reuters sources. We've kind of got a good varied selection of sources, which with a focus on agricultural markets, which we believe the market is seriously lacking at the moment. Somewhere where it's like, nice in your hand, you see everything that's coming in, cuts out all the noise, focus on the signal. Hopefully that helps people get kind of abreast of the information. Oh God, he's saying breast now.
Great
Geez.
stuff. I said that earlier, actually. I used the phrase abreast, and I was like, I like it. I'm going to use that more just to make people uncomfortable, if nothing else.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
we all should. But yeah, so I mean, that's it. It's the new coming. Like, it's awesome. I love it. I look at it. It took me a minute. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little slow. Just mostly with taking on new technology, not because it's hard to take on. I just am more like, what is this? And my eyes cross for a minute. And then I
Yeah,
talk
right.
myself through it. I'm like, it's okay. You know how to use these things. It's like, but it's great. Check it out. You'll really like it. It does cut out the noise. And that's, like I said, I'm being nice and everything, I swear. But I feel like we're putting carts before horses, and
Yes.
on top of that, we have a continuation. Sometimes you just have a recency bias continuation. I feel like that's, to a certain extent, the factor in this as well. So, other than that, we'll just be paying attention to trade. I think you saw Hassett, or one of them, one of the administration people, come out this morning and say that when Trump gets back from his trip overseas, he has another trade deal to announce. We got 20 to 25 of them suckers in the works now. That's a bump from last week. Yeah, I mean, super lucky over here. And so we'll see what we get going on. Mostly, I think over the next day or so, it's really going to be a focus on the Black Sea stuff. There's some weather issues popping up also to pay attention to. There's reports of some streak mosaic virus in Kansas that could be problematic. I've said that a million times. I'm going to say it again just so people maybe credit it to me in another month or so when we're talking about this. But too much rain is the only thing that wheat can't handle beside absolutely no rain. Like, wheat is
Even
just,
I know that because
yeah,
you've told me that.
1,000 times, no less. And so that's what we're starting to hear about, is the streak mosaic, a few other diseases out there. If you get a lot of heavy rain just as the wheat's starting to head out too, you can end up with fusarium that can create vom. It's just one of those things where we have to be really careful. A lot of times when you assume a big fat wheat crop is coming in, Sybil has a way to prove you wrong. And so just be really careful. Watch the weather here in the short term. China's going to stay real dry. It does look like they are going to have some pretty major problems there with their stuff. Whether or not you convince the speculator to come back into the market, I don't know. And yeah, I think that's it. It's a lot of minutes to talk about stuff,
Awesome.
but yeah.
Awesome. Look, it's all value. It's all value, and I've hopefully put a smile on people's faces. Well, I hope it's a smile. But Angie, thank you so much for being your wonderful self. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. Whatever you're doing, stay safe, keep it tight, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Much love.
Have a great one, guys.